Yo, what's up? My name is Patrouski. Welcome to another Christmas event preparation guide in PokeMMO. This is the year 2024, and this year is going to be extremely different from previous years, or at least that's my guess. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. We do not know what's going to happen this year for the Christmas event. In like more than ever. Like usually each year we make educated guesstimations and predictions based on what we saw in previous years, and this year nothing makes sense, and I'll explain why. You see, we are essentially in the middle of a transition period for the Christmas event, or a lot of events, honestly, in PokeMMO, because 2 years ago, doing the Elfbot minigame over at Twist Mountain was the norm. That was the method. The event entirely was running around, picking up these Elfbots, and sort of playing a tower defense, almost like survival wave type of minigame, known as what we call a dungeon in PokeMMO. It was really cool, really fun, very strategic, and there was an awesome leaderboards. However, we finished all the Elfbot stuff. There are no more Elfbot type vanities to achieve. You can head over to the GTL. We did them all. We have the fighting, we have the ice, we have the rock. We even did fairy last year or so during, I think that was like during the Lunar New, it was during Xmas, yeah, last year, but that was sort of in a different way. You didn't actually achieve these by playing the Twist Mountain minigame. So we're kind of just done with the Elfbot stuff. Now, it's possible they bring this event back, but with different vanities. That's kind of what we expected last year, but they didn't do that. Instead, last year was kind of just like an IOU sort of event. They basically gave us a flat 20% shiny boost known as the holiday boost, and they also gave us the wishing stone, which is one of the most contentious items in PokeMMO because it's an item that was difficult to grind and difficult to achieve. You could get them again recently during the Halloween event with Darkrai, but it's an item that has no use, and it's essentially just, hey, you better hang on to it. Surely we'll give it a use in the future, and it's been over a year at this point, or almost a year at this point, unfortunately, and still no use, which is unfortunate, but what are you going to do? The reason why last year's event was an IOU event is because they were busy with Johto. They were so busy developing Johto and trying to get that pushed out in time that they just didn't have as much time to focus on the holiday events and all of that content. Last year's events were not great, in my opinion, to be totally honest, but they also didn't need to be because we were all so busy with Johto and hunting the legendaries that were just introduced at that time. The most viable thing that I've seen predicted this year that I also personally agree with is the possibility of Christmas raids. They've spent so much time working on them, and they've mentioned them at one point on the forums that they have over 100 raid ideas planned out. I think there should be enough for them to do some sort of winter or Xmas themed Christmas raids, but I could be wrong. This is once again just a guess. With all of this information and backstory in mind, we can actually now jump into what I actually am preparing personally for the 2024 Xmas event and what I would recommend you prepare at your own discretion. Please don't prepare raid Pokemon for the possible raids that may happen for an event that isn't even guaranteed and then be upset at me when they don't happen. I'm trying to qualify as much as I possibly can that this is a risk. If you can't afford to take it, I don't recommend taking that risk. But that brings us into the number one safest thing to invest in during events, which is Pokeyen. Pokeyen allows you to buy stuff that you want during the events. It allows you to invest into things during the event to then sell them 2 years down the line or so to make more Pokeyen. I always keep in mind there are different types of investments when it comes to PokeMMO. There are short-term investments, which I can consider to be about 6 to 12 months, but the average investment, you're going to have to hold it for about 2 years or so. And the average player doesn't really want to make investments in PokeMMO because they're really going to be around in 2 years. Like the average player probably isn't, which is super fair, super understandable, just something to consider. Buying meta Pokemon or items for any of the challenges or content that may be released during the Christmas event, Pokeyen is really good for that. It offers you so much flexibility. If you have pure yen, you can just do with whatever you need to do with it during the event. Now, the downsides of pure yen is that if something like raid Pokemon, like fire-type raid Pokemon, get really, really good during the Christmas event, well, then their prices are going to skyrocket. So if you prepare them ahead of time, you could save some Pokeyen, but obviously, if they're not actually good or useful during the event, you're not actually going to say you're kind of going to net neutral. So it's still a risk to take. To pile on top of the Pokeyen, you could also prepare RP, since RP has gone down to be a little bit cheaper. It got pretty expensive during the Halloween event. everybody bought up the RP vanities and everything they needed, and now it's kind of going back down a little bit. So I personally picked up actually 3,000 RP. I've redeemed one and have 2 tickets just in case they go back up and I can sell them for decent profit, and also stocking up on a donator status for the event to be able to skip that login queue. Every single time there's a holiday event, the servers get absolutely packed. And if you have donator status, you can skip the login queue, which is really important because the first few hours of any event is almost always some of the best Pokeyen for that event. If you can play the first 3 hours, you might be able to make over 1 million Pokeyen or a few million Pokeyen within that first 2 to 3 hours or so, versus throughout the rest of the event, you'll be making around 300k per hour as opposed to, multiple, like over 1 mil per hour in those first minutes. Like getting the sealed product and selling it off as quickly as possible is super, super important. If you want to see more on that topic, I have a video on my channel called Event Economics 101, where I essentially go over the curve of how the market generally works in events like this. But as a quick TLDR, you generally want to sell everything in the first half of the event and buy everything in the second half whenever you want stuff. But also, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I really recommend checking out the video, because at the end of the event, you also see a lot of FOMO and a bunch of prices spike at the very end, and they often go down after the event is over. We're seeing that a lot right now with a lot of the Christmas stuff, with the Shadow Cape sort of going down in price continuously. You honestly can make investments after events a lot of the time, so just don't be fear-mongered into thinking you have to invest in stuff during an event. All right, but next up, number 2, the second thing I recommend you prepare are fire-type raid Pokemon specifically. Now, if you want to make your own predictions on whatever possible raid Pokemon they'll do, more power to you. Your predictions are just as valid as mine. I think that fire-type Pokemon... Now, number 1... fire types and setting up sun and drought was already really, really good, like in previous raids. So I do think that worst case scenario, if you prepare yourself like a Drought Ninetales, a Darmanitan, a Typhlosion, and an Entei, I think these are like the 4 safest Pokemon in my opinion to prepare, because even if these aren't good in Christmas raids, they'll still be good once permanent raids are released, most likely. And a lot of these, you want to build these to be versatile, right? If you play PvP or you want to build them so they can also operate in PvP, that's a great idea to do it as well. I use this Darmanitan for a bunch of PVM. This is my Jimmy Run Typhlosion. You can use your Jimmy Run Typhlosions in a way that is going to allow you to use it in PVM and Jimmy Runs and other activities. So having a legendary totally built is just a nice feeling. I like to be able to get my legendaries up to a nice little built out degree, but that's up to each person. If you are scared of taking that risk, or you want to sort of divert that risk a little bit, it's totally okay to build these Pokemon in a more PvP centric way, or build them and then you can just like change their move sets if a certain thing is super good during the Christmas event, for example. I do want to quickly shout out Tuba Skinny for actually sending me this Ninetales alongside some other fire type Pokemon. It saved me a ton of time, and it is an absolute YouTuber, streamer privilege to be sent Pokemon like this, so I can focus on actually making guides and making content around what you guys need to prepare. I didn't ask him for it, he just sent it to me, and I really do appreciate gifts like that. So I just want to say thank you, because it does help out a ton. Quick thank you to Tuba Skinny. There's also things like Moltres and Chandelure, which are also good. I think Moltres and Chandelure... Moltres had a really good niche during the Christmas event, and it encouraged me to actually go and get one made. And then also Volcarona. I don't have Volcarona in my party right now, but Volcarona also showed some promise during all these raids. So if you don't know, just in case, to run down really quickly, for Ninetales, you do really want the Drought ability. That is super, super, super important. Drought is super important. And then you want to have something like Fire Blast or Flamethrower, some sort of fire special attacking attack. You probably want to go Modest or Timid. You want to go 2v2 special attack, 2v2 speed, and then the IVs, you want 31 special attack, possibly 31 speed, and then when it comes to raid Pokemon, the defense IVs are going to be mostly irrelevant. Raids have become very much an offensive DPS sort of test / power battle. So if you just want this for PVM, if you just want this for raids, going 31 special attack, or even 25 plus special attack and 25 plus speed plus correct nature is totally fine. It's totally usable. If you want to use it in PvP as well, then you can do the 25 pluses and defenses like this one fortunately has. My Darmanitan, similar thing. I use this in PvP as well as an adamant, like offensive one, as opposed to even being 31 speed Jolly. So Adamant, 2v2 attack, 2v2 speed on the Darmanitan, or Jolly. You can do Adamant or Jolly. 31 attack and highest speed possible. If you want to go 20 plus in defenses, you can, but also don't stress about it or don't worry about defenses if you just want them for raids. Once again, if you want to divert some of that risk and have them also be usable in PvP, it's worth to spend the Pokeyen now to pay that upfront cost to make them better. So Flare Blitz is super good. That's the main thing, and then everything else is kind of optional. Sheer Force, very important. Sheer Force plus Life Orb. It adds a bunch of extra damage. Then Typhlosion, same thing. Jimmer Typhlosion. You want a special attack nature. This could be modest, mild, or rash. Honestly, all of those are totally fine. Just can't do quiet because it hurts the speed. You want 2v2 special attack, 2v2 speed, and you want IVs. You want the highest special attack and the highest speed that you can afford. You want Eruption. That is extremely important. He gets it at level like 82 or so you can just XP train him. And XP training all these Pokemon, if you're preparing them up until level 100 or so, it is very, very important. Or at least level 80-ish for most of the raids. That'll allow you to do most of them. Like my Darmanitan's a little under-leveled at the moment. Next up, Entei. He is one of the few. I think he's the only physical attacker. Everything else is special. Well, I guess Darmanitan. Darmanitan and Entei are the two physical attackers on this list. Everything else is special. So pretty typical stuff. Adamant on the Entei. 2v2 attack, 2v2 speed. And as many IVs you can get, and then Sacred Fire is super good. Moltres, modest, the inverse of Entei, modest nature, 2v2 special attack, 2v2 speed, good IVs. Boom Bam, Fire Blast, Sunny Day, sure, why not? And then the my Chandelure is a great example of like you don't need amazing Pokemon to do raids, to do the Pumpkin, right? My Chandelure is missing nature, which is really, really bad, and then it's also not 31 of any special attack or speed. Now it has some decent like bulkish stats or whatever, but it doesn't really matter a lot in PVM situations. This is like you could do a lot better than this, and this works plenty well. This is a fantastic Pokemon that does a lot of work during the Pumpkin and during a lot of PVM activities. All right, and then number 3, the final thing that I recommend you prepare is shiny hunting supplies. This is the least likely thing that I think is going to happen, so this is kind of up to you. This is the biggest risk on this list, honestly, in my opinion. We kind of went from safest to medium risk to high risk. I personally really don't think that the holiday boost will return. And I will be very disappointed if it does. I really think the holiday boost was just a way to say, hey, we're sorry for Johto being late, and we're sorry for, you know, these events being kind of whatever. I think it was like I'm sorry sort of thing. But if it does return, you might want to have some Dittos, some Fossils, some Lepa Berries, Donor Status, Shiny Charms, like whatever you may need to do some of these rarer or harder shunts during that boost to save a tremendous amount of time is pretty crazy. People don't realize how insane a 20% shiny boost is on top of being able to pop Donor Status and Shiny Charm, right? So if you have, let's take a 1,000 hour shunt, for example. Let's take a 1,000, one of the rarest shunts of the game, a 1,000 hour shunt. It's a very, very tough shunt, right? If you were to subtract 10% off of this hunt, right? So let's subtract 10%. Let's take 1,000, subtract 10%. Boom, right? That's your Donor Status. Okay, so you saved 100 hours. That's on average. That's quite good, right? Well, let's go ahead and subtract 10 more percent because it's a Shiny Charm. So now we have Donor Status and Shiny Charm, right? That's what we're subtracting right there, okay? So you took a 1,000 hour hunt, took it down to 810, but it's going to be expensive because you Donor Status. What? If you also flat out cut off Holiday Boost on top of this times... You would do times 0.20. I'm terrible at math, so stick with me. 810 minus 162. You just start cutting off so much. So now you've taken a 1,000 hour hunt and turned it into a 648 hour hunt. It's not quite 40% off, but it's almost, right? It effectively ends up being like, what, 36% or whatever, like off of it's making your shiny hunts like 36% easier. It's crazy. It's pretty nuts. So that 20% on top is just so nuts to me. I'm not a fan of the holiday boost personally. I think it promotes like wanting you to hold and save all your rare hunts for Christmas and then neglect the Christmas event if you care about shiny hunting and just shiny hunt and never actually rare shunt outside of the event. You want to save everything just for the event. I'm not a fan of it personally, but I understand for the average player, it's just a fun little exciting thing. And honestly, there's not that much harm in it. So that's coming from my like high end like nerd emoji like shiny hunter. I understand that. I get that, right? So just something to factor in. If you care about shunting a ton like I do, it probably is worth to take that risk of preparing some shunting supplies, but I do think it's unlikely the holiday boost returns, but I could be mistaken. Someone suggested recently that which I agree with, I would love to see them replace the holiday boost. Instead of being a 20% on top of donor status in Shiny Charm, just give every player free donor status and free Shiny Charms for the event. I feel like that's a great way to do it. I feel like that's like a fair way, so we don't have to just pay for those bonuses. They just that's the true holiday bonus, in my opinion, as opposed to giving us 20% on top of encouraging us to pay for donos and chat whatever, etc. So that's my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Hopefully the video was helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like it if you did. Dislike it if you did not. Subscribe to the channel for PokeMMO videos every single day. There'll be tons of streams during the Christmas event, as well as tons of guides and videos as soon as I can get them out. I try to be really on top of things during events. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the future of PokeMMO. It's been a blast. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace, Reno, and good luck on your Xmas prep. Hey, what's up? Patrouski here, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video. That means the world to me, and if your name is listed here, that means you went above and beyond and supported the channel financially, which allows me to even be here and have the time to do this. So thank you so very much.